now there's no oil in the converter. Stall speed is never ending.
Hey, welcome back. Another episode of BarryTsGarage with Ask Ed Smith. And Ed Smith is right here with me. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning. Good morning.
Just as a reminder, I don't show Ed the questions ahead of time. It's part of the fun. You guys put them in the comments, and we'll see what Ed does.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
That's fun. And so we get
My
his
opinion.
Get his opinion
Yeah.
and maybe his experience. And sometimes when we're really lucky, we get a racing story. That's
It could be. Yeah.
It always, that's a good one.
Could
if it
get
happens.
a story once in a while.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Okay, well, we're going to get into the first question here. Someone with the name Bonanza. This is from that famous small block Chevy Fix the Oiling video. You did all the pointers about what to do with the Chevy engine. He said, when you remove the material from the area outside the scribe line or from inside of it, this is when you talked about putting a scratch on the heads, I think, to...
To just make a chamber bigger.
Yeah, a little more clearance maybe? Okay. So when you mark the line inside the cylinder bore, do you remove the material on the inside of the line or the outside of the line?
You make it just your opinion.
Yeah.
And I would probably make it on the outside of the line.
Okay.
Because you don't want to have any interference whatsoever. So outside the line, and maybe I would say the bore could be 4 inches or whatever it happens to be, 4 inches 30. Well, you'd go 5 over that. And the piston's only going to go up in that thing a little ways, maybe 20 or 30 thousandths out of the deck. Yeah, you don't run the piston a 1/4 inch out of the deck for sure. And you can't mill that much off the head.
Okay.
To make the head thinner.
Right. So maybe after you dig that out, you still measure it, make sure it's bigger than the bore.
Yeah, bigger than the bore, by 5 thousandths. Yeah.
So it might be instead of 4.030, go 4.035?
35, yeah. Common sense, yeah.
Excellent.
It's all good, yeah.
Okay. You'll notice if Ed says that I said I was right, it's only because it's common sense, because I don't know.
Yeah, that's all, yeah. Okay.
That's good. All right. Okay, Hoosier says a lot of people don't understand stall speed. It's always it's a mystery to people.
We've had so many questions about that, and there's so much about stall speed.
Yeah.
And it's and then nobody can answer your question.
Right.
Yeah, the stall speed is the best for your car.
And your car only.
Your car only. You can't change the torque converter just because he has one. Put one on yours.
Right.
Because he has more horsepower. The more horsepower. So if you had 150 horsepower and it's stall speed at 2,000 or something, and if you put that same converter behind something that's got 300 or 400 horsepower, it'll stall 3,500.
Right.
Yeah, so each stall speed goes with the horsepower of the engine.
Right. So Hoosier's actually, he's totally agreeing with you. He said you've got to talk to the converter guys about the entire setup.
That's right, exactly right.
The weight, the tire size, power output, RPM to get a proper converter.
Yes.
So he agrees with you.
Yeah. And then you have to run it and try it.
Okay.
You might try it and change it again.
Yeah.
That's why we end up with, I don't know the other converter people, A1's one and something like this, but Hughes, they're here in town, and they've been my friends since they were little boys.
Yeah.
And so we're really good friends, and we still are.
Yeah.
So anyways, we depend on them, and most of the time, if we're down there at the converter place, we'll go down there one of these days and video that too. That's one of our things.
Yeah.
Ed's friends. We're going to have a whole edition of Ed's friends here in town.
Yeah.
Total Seal Rings and Hughes and stuff. But hey, we'll go down there and go through that thing and stuff. And that's why the new converters are all bolted together. Maybe 30 bolts around it. So you take it apart and just change the stator instead of buying 2 or 3 converters.
Right.
And then the new ones they have with a dump valve. I like that a little bit somewhat, but I never ran one. A dump valve where they dump all the oil out of the converter.
Okay.
So now there's no oil in the converter. Stall speed is never ending.
Right.
There's no stall speed.
It never connects up.
Yeah. And then when they wind up the engine, you push a valve and dumps the oil back in the converter as you accelerate.
Okay.
Yeah, it fills the converter right back up again with a big diameter volume. And so you don't get that stall speed or trying to brake, jerking the car. It just leaves.
Wow.
So it's really slick.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. You can wind it up to $7,000 if you want to, if you got nerve enough to.
Yeah.
And then just dump the oil back in the converter, and it would just easily leave without jerking or breaking the tires
that
loose or
yeah.
jerking the drive shaft.
That's
and stuff.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Wow.
They
Okay.
had that for a couple of years, I think. But I think, again, common sense is only good for certain applications.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, a big high horsepower motor and drag racing with big tires and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like it's drag racing because it's a one-shot deal. You can't empty it at the next traffic light and start again.
Yes, right. Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, you could, but
Well, okay.
but the whole internal. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah, that is good. Thank you, Hoosier. Appreciate that. Okay, the next one from Paul says, please ask Ed how much offset I can put on a wrist pin typically. Is there a formula for maximum, or like people are fascinated by moving that wrist pin around on the piston?
Well, there's nothing he can do. It's built into the piston.
Okay.
Where the offset is built in the piston so much.
So maybe he's thinking about ordering a piston.
Yeah, he'd have to order it.
Okay.
And the piston people will tell you that.
Okay.
What they recommended or something, I have no idea. But I would think there's probably maybe 4,000 or 5,000 offset. Not much.
Okay.
It's not like 15 or 20.
Right.
It's just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And that, again, it's the drag on the cylinder walls,
Right.
on the piston. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think most pistons here, I haven't heard about that, because we used to do that. And we put, like we used to buy true Ford's piston, Ford's true pistons and stuff. If it had offset in it, they'd tell you how much offset
Okay.
in the piston thing. Then we'd maybe put all the arrows going back on our drag race motor.
Okay.
Instead of the arrows going forward like
Yeah,
they
so you kind
recommended.
of flipping it the other way.
Yeah, just flip the piston around the other way, yeah.
Mhm.
But we don't hear that much anymore. And I'm not sure, I don't think that has any reference to now what you'd want to order a piston
Yeah.
offset for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously Paul wants to play around with it.
And especially with something with a stroker piston. If you have a longer rod, connecting rod, you don't get that offset. It's got nothing to do with anything.
Okay. It's good to
Yeah.
keep in mind.
Yeah, you have to keep that in mind. So the longer the rod, the longer the stroke, that less wrist pin offset has anything to do with anything.
Right.
The
Because
piston's still going straight up and down, not going sideways.
yeah, you've taught us that the longer stroke is less skirt wear.
Absolutely, yeah.
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 Very good. See, I'm remembering a few of these things.
Okay.
Was that Chuck's Speed Shop in Phoenix that used to run the Mello Yellow Corvette? That might be where I'd seen you before. It used to hang out there 50 years ago. He says.
Yeah, it was Chuck's Speed Shop.
Yeah.
Mello Yello Corvette, yeah.
He did have that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, David, yeah, you have it right. That is exactly right.
Yeah, actually, exactly right. That Corvette, they was racing out at the Beeline, and a friend of mine over here was a Harley Davidson shop right now, was driving that car.
Okay.
And they were racing Airlift Rattler car, Kruger. And he was at Beeline Winter Nationals.
Okay.
And the Kruger couldn't stay in his own lane.
Uh-oh.
He was all over the track with this. It was the Airlift Rattler car. I was trying to think what the guy's name is. I don't know what his name is anymore.
Okay.
But we were going to the track that day, and we were driving into the track. Is that car, that Musker Kruger, was on the trailer leaving in a hurry.
Okay.
And we were just getting there. So what's his problem? Where's he going?
Yeah.
Well, he was racing the Corvette. And the Corvette gave him a head start, just because they didn't trust his driving. So when he got halfway down the track, give him a head start. But then the Kruger crossed into his lane, and he avoided it and rolled that Corvette.
Oh, no. Wow.
So he ended up a whole bunch of fiberglass, a whole pickup load of fiberglass, and that was the end of the Corvette.
Oh, no. Wow.
They tore it, and the kid still has, over here he owns a motorcycle shop, Ken Fulcher was driving it then. And they had a whole bush, again, there's a Corvette, pickup load of yellow parts.
Wow. Well,
But that had a special frame under it, and straight axle, and Oldsmobile rear end, and big block Chevy with a clutch flight, I think.
Yeah.
Transmission in it. So.
Wow.
And they raced it a little bit, didn't race that car a whole lot. They raced in Orange County a couple times, I think.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Well,
They never took it out of town to race it, except Orange County.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you have an accident halfway or more down the track, you've got some speed going by then already.
Yeah, he's running way over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The guy crossed in front of me, he just tried to avoid it and went out in the dirt. As we got in the dirt, it ended sideways and tore it all apart.
Oh, my goodness. Well, at least he survived it.
Yeah, he survived it, didn't get hurt that much. Got a back injury, I think, is the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyways, that's what happened to that.
That's what happened. So don't look for that Mello Yello Corvette to be around anywhere.
It's no more.
It's gone. Yikes. Okay. John specifically wants to know, do you know anything about the 51 Ford 337 Flathead? That's that big truck block Flathead, isn't
It
it?
had to be, because 331, that had to be a
Yeah, he says 337.
337.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it at all. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen one. I've never worked on one. It probably was out of a 1 or 2 ton truck,
Yep.
like a big dump truck or something.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah,
You haven't had to deal with those, and
never had anything to do with him. It had to be huge to be at that. You know, the cylinder heads had to be 3 or 4 inches longer than
yeah.
the other one, and bore and crank. And we don't hear anything about that. He's well, I think maybe it's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Yeah. I think Steve Kopic mentioned one of those to me, but he doesn't have one, and I've never seen one.
Yeah, we never seen one. Yeah.
So it's a pretty rare thing. I would like to see one, by the way. If we
Just
happen across one, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
We did a tour of the crankshaft building.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at how you grind crankshafts and the whole situation, there's a video you can watch. We did a tour over there, but he's asking, do you index the crank when you're grinding it?
Sure.
I knew it was going to be an easy answer.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us what indexing is for people
Index
who don't
makes sure everything's on a 45.
know. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you have to bump it up a little bit, but the whole machine's made to that way.
Okay.
It's got indexes on it where you line them all up and make sure they're all indexed exactly like they're supposed to be.
Okay, so what would happen to an engine, obviously a used engine, what would happen to it for...
If it wasn't indexed,
Yeah.
probably vibrate.
Okay. And what would
shake.
cause it to be out of spec?
Somebody ground it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. Now some cranks are twist forged.
Oh, right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So the crank is actually forged red hot and it's stamped in a machine flat. A V8 crank is flat.
Wow.
And while it's still red hot, they have a special machine that grabs the throws and twists them
Wow.
and made a V8.
Mm-hmm.
Twist forged.
Okay.
That would be like doing the same thing as a front spindle for a car.
Mm.
The front spindle is pressed flat.
Okay.
And while it's still hot, they grab it and bend it for the ball joints.
Okay.
That's the only way you can do it. They don't have a mold. They put it in and pour it red hot and take the mold apart. And that's what it is. No, it's twist forged. So if that's twist forged crank, that's why you buy a steel crank. It's made out of steel. Because after that, you get hot and stuff, it will unwind.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, then the index will be off.
Okay. Yep.
So that's possible, yeah.
What about...
Vibration and stuff like it, again, it unwinds.
Okay.
Okay, if that answers
So
your
I have a friend that had a crankshaft that was twisted, but in his case, it got hydrolocked while running.
Yes, absolutely.
So that would be another thing. If you
Yeah.
have antifreeze...
That'd bend the crank end for end too.
Right.
And we always straighten our cranks. We have a machine and we make sure they're all straight.
Yeah.
If they're not straight, then it'd be like take a crankshaft like a banana
Yeah.
and grind. You can grind it, take 5 off here and 2 off here and 5 off here and 2 off here and make it straight as far as the bearings.
Yeah.
But the still it's like and it will vibrate like mad.
Yeah. Right.
So you can't really do that. And I don't know if somebody'd be foolish to not straighten the crank before they ground it.
So the answer is you index every time.
Every time.
Okay, so now we've got a question from H. Wilson. He enjoyed the video where you souped up that Model T.
Okay.
Went from 20 to 40 horsepower or something like that.
Yeah.
And he says, it really is cool to double the horsepower with stock-ish stuff. I'm sure the drivetrain is built sturdy, but what's going to happen to the transmission and differential when you have that power?
I think those transmissions, I look back at them, those are pretty hefty transmissions as far as the gears and stuff and the planetaries and stuff are really heavy.
Okay.
They didn't, I'll just say maybe they didn't know what they were doing then. And when they made that transmission, the ring and pinion is big, heavy. I don't know. I don't know if ever breaking a ring and pinion
Okay.
or breaking a drive shaft on a Model T.
Mm-hmm.
And the gears, I never heard of them breaking anything in the transmission.
Right.
It's just the bands on it that would just clamp it together, and the planetaries make it go where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
But I think they overdeveloped it for a 20-horse motor.
Yeah. Okay.
They really did. So there was no worry at all.
No concern.
No concern. And
Yeah.
of course, they went away from that whole thing, went into the stick shift transmission top loader with the top loader. You hear that with the shifter on the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mainly, so many times the transmissions were overkill. If you look back at them, and built heavy duty until they started getting 150 horse.
Oh, wow.
And the Chevy motors and Ford motors and started breaking the transmissions. I got a friend back in Bryan, Ohio, that had a 54 Ford. He put a 390 in it. I think he could change the transmission in about 20 minutes.
He got really good at it.
But he had, I think it's true, this is the truth, I think somewhere he had about 35 transmissions in that car. It was a two-door hardtop and standard tires on it too. A 390 motor in that thing, and I think he had 30-some transmissions in it. And some of my high school friends, if they're old as I am, remember him bragging about how many transmissions he had. It was 3 speeds, you know.
You'd think after maybe 25 transmissions.
Well, there's nothing available.
Oh, okay.
You know, there was no 4 speeds then.
Okay.
There's nothing else available, but
So he obviously
changed them.
He ran them hard.
Junkyard had a lot of them.
That's
Open drive shaft. I think it took about 25, 30 minutes to change the tread, and nothing was in there.
You leave the
It was
clutch
kind
in?
of funny, but yeah.
That's funny to me. Wow. But you know what? He was determined to keep going fast.
Yeah, well, it did go fast.
Yeah.
I mean, on the pay, you go out of the drive-in there, the root beer drive-in, and be sideways all the way down the street in first and second gear, yeah.
That's funny.
So it was a good,
man.
yeah, fun.
Yeah, well, you hot rod guys, I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't know him better.
Yeah. So Keith writes in, and he's a good commenter. Thank you, Keith, for all your comments along the way. He's particularly kind of likes the Rochester B carburetor because it had a fuel bowl surrounded venturi. He said he saw those on old Pontiac straight eights, he thinks.
They had some really weird carburetors in the 50s. And some with like a fishbowl where the bowl's ahead and then all the mechanisms underneath it.
Oh, yeah.
That was a Ford carburetor, I think.
Yeah.
But the Pontiac, that carburetor, I don't remember a carburetor like that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Ed can't remember every single thing ever.
I didn't work on every car either.
No, not every car. That's right. You probably didn't get too many of the Hudsons and Studebakers
Not
as
too
much.
many, no.
Yeah, right. Another one writes in, says, my grandpa used to always say, I've seen more carb and fuel problems turn out to be electrical. In other words, I guess diagnosing a poor running engine or not knowing what you're doing, or
That's the new cars.
yeah,
I'm sure you refer to the new car with the fuel injection.
yeah,
And there's all kinds of problems. Of course, there's sensors.
yep,
The temperature has to be so much in the engine, the water. Then you got the emissions sensors and everything else sending signals everywhere.
yeah,
And a computer telling them what to do and how much fuel to put in it.
right.
Give it to a nephew and go buy a new one.
There you go. Let one of the young guys work it out.
Yeah, right.
We got another question on your oiling video.
Okay.
He's asking, which of these modifications would be useful for someone not racing, but just wanting a cruiser to go down the highway?
They're all good.
Okay.
They're not necessary for racing.
Okay.
It's for longevity of the motor.
Okay.
Like we said before, most of those things don't make the motor any faster. It just makes it live longer.
Okay.
And those modifications are just something that just makes it live longer. And it runs not necessarily smoother or any faster or anything like that, the oiling system. But just, again, makes it live longer.
Right. So go for it.
Just
All
go
of
for it,
them.
yeah. Just
Do
whatever.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like when you're rebuilding an engine anyway, what you showed us,
It's
it take a little more time, but not an awful lot.
It don't take that much time to drill some of those holes out and redo it, shine them up a little bit where the oil returns.
Yeah.
And chamfer those holes around the oil filter so the oil flows better instead of being, anytime you get that stuff in, it just makes it live longer.
Yeah. Okay. Engines love good, clean oil.
Yeah.
Tom is asking, what do you think about Rhoads lifters?
We've had Rhoads lifters, and I don't know if he still makes them or not.
Okay.
It was actually he machined a little groove in there so the lifter would bleed down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's idle. It takes so much volume, not pressure, but volume and pressure too, to pump that lifter up to where it runs normally.
Okay.
So he would machine a little groove in and let that bleed off.
Oh.
So the lifter at idle was a little noisy because it was bleeding off and it wasn't
pumped up as high.
wasn't pumped up. And so that would decrease the duration of the camshaft.
Ah.
Yeah. So a 300-degree camshaft would make it run like a 280
I see.
by bleeding the lifter up. But as soon as you rev it up, that volume would overcome that and put it back up to 300. Yeah, we love those. We used to use, and we made them here in town.
So,
We did, we'll put them in the 442 Oldsmobiles and stuff. They drove them on the street.
mm-hmm.
And some of those street cars, not necessarily drag cars. And I don't know why they say about lifters. Now everybody's having, the whole world having lifter problems. The cam's going flat and the lifters don't go very fast. And we have some problem. We try to get away from that and run roller lifters all the time. But in those days with the Rhoads lifters and 20, 30 years ago, we had no cam problems.
Do you think it's the metal they're using?
I don't know. I still blame it on the lifter.
Okay.
I blame it on the lifter manufacturer and tolerance and stuff.
I see. Yeah.
And we hear other people complain, everybody in every machine shop in town or in the whole United States is complaining about that, they not necessarily pick on one brand. It seems like all brands, they all go flat.
Rusty is saying he really wants to see opportunities for the young people to get the hot rod bug and get involved and find a way to inexpensively have some fun. You know, you're sitting next to a big 392 blown Hemi. The teenagers aren't going to buy an engine like that. But what can they do? What do you suggest for someone just inexpensively getting involved?
I don't know, right now I think we hear some, I follow the news quite a bit and I'm interested a little bit about, the word is that NHRA, National Hot Rod Association. I don't know what's going on there, but it sounds like the people don't go to the drags anymore.
Mm.
And the stands are almost empty at a big meet.
Wow.
Like in Indianapolis a couple of months ago, the stands were almost empty. You find a seat anyway. But it goes back to the economy too. I don't know what they have to do something with this economy, and I don't know I don't know who I'm in favor of getting this economy straightened out like it was before. Because right now, our business is down 30%.
Really?
Everybody else that I talked to, their business is down 30%. And I don't know when it's going to go back up what it was before, but people right now are spending money on things that they need.
Yeah.
And they're not spending any money on things they don't need.
Right.
That's in new cars. I just see a thing in the paper. Bigger cars are not selling. Yeah, they're buying little cars, and it has got to do with that hot rod. But the hot rodding, for the kids to get started on it, I don't know whether he wants to take an old car, make a hot rod out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what he is asking for.
Yeah.
Answer the question, or buy it. But right now, all the young people are wanting to do turbocharge a little Suzuki or something,
Right.
or a Honda, and turbocharge, not necessarily supercharge, but turbocharge them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of confusing. I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer.
Yeah. Well, I wonder
How we can get started drag racing or trying to do that without going to a little foreign car or something.
Yeah.
You put a turbocharge on a car, and I've got a friend down here who works at Sanderson Ford, and they're putting superchargers on some Ford trucks and stuff. And that thing is $3,500, $4,000, maybe more.
Mm-hmm. I think it is more, yeah.
Yeah, more than that. Putting superchargers on these Ford trucks, and they're fast.
Yeah.
So,
well, one thought I have, and it's a thought from you, it's not my first idea, but, we talked about having some fun with the big 6-cylinders. The Chevy 292, the Ford 300. I wonder if you could find an old car or truck that has one of those in it inexpensively. Sometimes people overlook a 6-cylinder car, and you can still have fun with it, I think.
yeah, you could, yeah. It'd be inexpensive.
Yeah.
Spend a couple of dollars and change the intake for a 4-barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Hook up the linkages and stuff, so it's fine. A bigger exhaust.
Yeah.
Bigger exhaust is not that much.
And you told us your trick about splitting the exhaust manifold, so we know about that.
Put duals on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to change the camshaft to get some results out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Intake and exhaust is the main thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend $500-600 for ignition. The stock ignitions run pretty good right now.
Yeah. So now we have a flathead. We have a flathead Ford question from Jerry. He says he's often wondered, and I've seen you work on a flathead Ford very recently. And he says, can an 8BA, and that's an age range of Ford flathead, and the front cover be installed on the 47 and 48 59A motor to use the 8BA distributor setup?
You can buy that adapter. Any Speedway has it.
Okay.
It goes on the front of the camshaft.
Okay.
Little adapter. Puts that gear on the front that drives the distributor. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, that is a perfect, easy answer. I love that.
Yeah. There's a couple different front covers. You have to be careful there what you want to do, because one of the front covers is aluminum, and maybe that has the distributor have a little shaft on the end of the distributor. And that cover will have that adapter kind of a thing to hold that shaft from wobbling back and forth.
Yeah.
The bottom of the distributor. Some front covers have that, some covers don't. It depends on what cover you have and what distributor you're trying to put in there.
Okay.
So just don't, all the distributors don't go in that thing, covers the same.
Okay.
So make sure you get all this stuff that matches.
You have to match up. So you still have to do it can be done.
Do a little homework, yeah.
Do your homework. That's
Yeah.
That's the Ed Smith saying.
And that's the same one we put in Chevy distributors, because the Chevy distributor has some advanced weights in it,
Yes.
and Ford never did. If they did, it didn't work. So that's important.
That's, because a flathead really appreciates that.
Appreciates a little advance, up to 26 degrees advance. It really runs sweet.
Yeah. Joe's asking, do the cranks you work on, do they get wet magged, or do you use another process?
Dry.
Dry mag?
Yeah, we don't wet mag anything.
Okay. You want to explain to people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, that's got a fluid, and you have a thing you have wet fluid in it, and you run a magnet. That would be something if you want to really find some real fine cracks. But our dry mag, we do them all the time.
Okay.
That's with magnetic thing with a powder.
Right. And it
shows
up.
That shows if any kind of crack in it.
Good deal.
Wet mag would be more of a high-end machine shop.
Mm-hmm.
They would do aircraft stuff.
Ah.
Yeah, they'd be going through a wet mag.
I think that wraps us up for today, Ed.
Oh, okay.
I think we're good. Thank you guys once again for supporting our channel. Don't forget to I know everybody on the YouTube has to say, hit that alarm bell so you know when we make a new video, but people forget. And it helps us a lot. If you watch and you subscribe, that makes a big difference for us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's fun.
And thank you, Ed.
Thanks for the questions.
Yeah. And people, I get an email, it seems not an email, a comment, I'm sure every day. Please thank Ed for taking the time to share his experience.
Yeah, I don't
so that's
mind.
good. Okay. All right, we'll see you on the next one.
Okay.